Mr. Pat Boone, it certainly is nice to welcome you to the Copper Kettle Show on this bright and beautiful Monday morning in the entire Channel 6 area. I know that many people over the weekend were happy to see you in your brand new release, Main Attraction.
Well, I hope they were, and of course it was delightful for me to have the chance to come to Lansing and to see a lot of people in person. You know, they look at me in person, but it works the other way too. I get to look at them too.
Is this your first visit to Michigan?
Oh no, I've been to Michigan a lot of times, and I've pretty well covered the state before, you know, in various appearances. But I am really giving it a thorough canvassing now because the MGM people felt that it would be good for me to get around to a lot of the cities in Michigan where people tend to support movies and they felt might enjoy this particular picture. So we're traveling on a Greyhound bus from city to city, and it's like the old band days, you know. We're carrying our musicians, Paul Smith and a quartet of fine musicians, and I'm appearing on stage with in each city with the movie, and it's a lot of fun for me, and I feel like that now I haven't missed all of that glamorous era, you know, where all the great bands and the great singers toured from town to town, and people turned out in droves to hear them.
You know, actually, women are interested in you as a person, I think. Pat, can you tell us just a little bit about your lovely wife and your children, your daughters?
Yeah, well, I could tell you a lot about them. more than you'd have time for, but Shirley is a lovely woman, and we were high school sweethearts, and I think our marriage, which is now almost 10 years old, is proof that a man can be happy married to an older woman. She is, she's 5 weeks older. She's 5 weeks older than I am. And during that 5 weeks of the year, from between April 24th and June 1st, I let her be boss.
Oh, I see. She's the boss.
And the only thing is I managed to be gone during that 5 weeks. So, and we have 4 daughters.
What are their ages?
5, 6, 7, and 8.
5, 6, 7,
yeah.
8. And love their daddy, I'm sure. Now, tell me one thing. Kirsch, you have always portrayed the image as a very clean-cut youth. Now, in Main Attraction, you're doing something just a little different. Do you feel that what has this done to the 2,500 fan clubs of which you are a member?
Well, they are much more for it, the fan clubs, much more for this whole thing than just kind of, you know, people at large. Because they understand and have understood for some time the problem that I face. I want naturally to build some kind of a successful career in movies. However, I don't feel free to do it along the same lines as say a young actor from New York who will take almost any kind of a role involving any kind of sensational, sordid, or violent story, which is really calculated to get them to the top fast. I don't feel free to do that. I've got to take on dramatic roles in a variety of parts, but for myself at least, I have to find roles like that are in the context of worthwhile stories that I feel have some business being put on the screen. So it's been a tough thing, and the fan clubs that you mentioned are for 100%, and I've had a lot of encouraging letters now from presidents and members and people in general who've seen the films, The Yellow Canary and The Main Attraction, and say, we completely forgot that you were Pat Boone, and we enjoyed the movies as stories, and we hope you'll do more things like them. So I'm hoping that all these films will do, in addition to being individual successes, will be to open up the door for a variety of parts, westerns, musicals, comedies, and dramatic things.
So that your versatility can really come forth. Now, Pat, don't you feel, too, that you can be a great influence for good in the parts that you are portraying to the teenagers today, where there seems to be such a great need?
I think so, if the part allows you to. Now, not all parts that I would play would be all-American type boys, you know. But I think that in a dramatic story, now like in The Main Attraction, if there is an obvious point to it, if there's a message, that I have every right to portray a guy very different from myself in order to tell this story. And to me, the basic plot, the basic idea of The Main Attraction is a very good one. It is the story of how love can change or transform a young man or a young woman. And this guy is a complete moral bankrupt at the start of the film, mainly because he's never known any real affection. But through the love that he feels for this young girl, this Italian girl played by Nancy Kwan, and her love for him, eventually, after a bunch of crises and adventures and romance, he is changed.
A little romance. As a matter of fact, I stepped in and watched just a little bit of Main Attraction.
Did you?
And it's mighty colorful. I think you said it was very colorful, and I agree 100%.
Well, we had the same photographer that they used in The World of Susie Wong and the Flower Drum Song. He's a great, great photographer.
That's beautiful.
And we had some lovely things to photograph, too.
Yes, indeed. I happened to see one or two. Pat, can you tell us briefly, since we do a few recipes here on the Copper Kettle Show, what is your favorite recipe? I think many of the women might be interested in knowing this.
I start drooling when you mention food and recipes. I like all kinds of food.
Do you cook?
If I cook just outdoors, you know, like so many guys nowadays, the charcoal, the starter, the match, and then the meat, you know.
The meat.
I do that. But if I had to pick one recipe, the one that comes to mind first is a dish called Chicken Linda that Shirley makes. And she got this recipe from a wonderful French chef in Jamaica. We were on vacation there, and I ordered it a couple of times, and it was so great that, and we bragged about it so much that he gave the recipe to Shirley with the understanding that she would never reveal this to anyone else on pain of death.
I see. And it's called Chicken Linda?
Chicken Linda.
It sounds very, very good. Mr. Pat Boone, we want to thank you so much for joining us here today.
I enjoyed
And we
it.
know that your picture, Main Attraction, is going to be a huge and tremendous success. And thank you.
Now I'll answer your phone. Hello, Main Attraction.
Hi, everybody. Howard Finch from Ellington Field outside of Houston. This is the NASA manned spacecraft project, and we've been out here since very early this morning shooting a Channel 13 documentary on Houston, the moonshot metropolis. This gear that you see behind me is probably your first look at the Mercury capsule that astronaut Cooper will fly in. And this is where he trains for the actual flight itself, which reminds me that Channel 6 is readying a very special project that I'd like to talk about for just a minute. As a matter of fact, I've got all the dope down here, but really anything that has to do with Martha Dixon and a copper kettle cookbook that's coming out, I wouldn't need any information about it, because if she puts it out, then it's got to be great. You know, I'd always thought that Martha was perhaps my protege in television, but that's not right. I think Martha was born for television, just that I happened to come along and be in the right place at the right time, and she was ready. And through some 8 years has become one of the great ladies of television. And I think it's a perfectly wonderful idea that she is now bringing out this great Martha Dixon copper kettle cookbook. Speaking of astronauts, it'll be a heavenly book, believe you me. And I sincerely hope that you get one of the first copies. Better yet, I hope that I get one of the first copies, and I must add this little note to Martha Dixon right here, that I do hope that shrimp a la Finch is included. So we'll say so long, Martha. God bless you, and the very best of luck.
This is Peter Thomas with Paris Calling. In this issue, the new Paris Express subway and Mexico City's El Metro. The French Merchant Marine. Fall and winter Paris fashions. A major challenge to all large cities is the movement of people into and out of their centers. The best method of doing so is, of course, mass transport. The Paris Transit Authority has tackled the crushing problem of Paris traffic with a new regional express line. Electric turnstiles are capable of handling 50,000 passengers an hour. New tracks reach out deep into the suburbs, 12 miles to the northwest, 10 miles to the southeast, to encourage Paris-bound commuters to leave their cars at home. By the mid-1970s, 30 miles of the new express network will have been completed at a total cost of $1 billion. The new lines are limited stops until they reach the city limits, and there, at 3 new terminals, they connect with existing metro lines. Of the projected 30 miles of new lines, 13 will be underground. The trains are air-conditioned, powered by overhead cables, and are considered by subway engineers among the world's safest, fastest, and most efficient. The 3 terminals which bring the commuters to the city are at Place de la Défense, Place Charles de Gaulle Étoile, Place de la Nation, Boissy-Saint-Léger. The stations are designed for passenger comfort, light, airy, with rubberized flooring to cut down on noise. A dispatch room is a popular place for commuters who can watch the controller scan the entire station from an electronic console complete with television monitors. The new express lines can carry as many as 2,500 passengers every 2.5 minutes. And when not traveling, they can visit at one subway stop alone a restaurant, 4 banks, 2 movie theaters, a branch of a drugstore, and a supermarket. French subway engineers have a worldwide reputation for design and construction. Engineers of an affiliate of the Transit Authority have been or are consultants in such cities as Montreal, Santiago, Lisbon, Brussels, Ankara, Casablanca, Cairo, and Tehran. And across the world, in Mexico City, these French engineers have acted as consultants on that city's pride and joy, El Metro. Built on a system of floating enclosed boxes over the lake which underlies the Mexican capital, the present 26 miles of track is virtually earthquake-proof. It currently carries some 2 million passengers a day at 8 cents a ride. El Metro is not only an aesthetically beautiful subway system, some people ride it for the mere enjoyment, but it is the world's highest and newest. On a loan from a French bank, the Mexican government bought French rolling stock, which runs on a computerized guidance system. By 1980, El Metro will be extended another 20 miles and will serve some 11 million passengers. Already the line reaches out to the airport outside the capital. The flashy orange cars are cared for in a modern maintenance shop. Because the Mexicans take such enormous pride in their system, there is little vandalism, but the cars are nonetheless kept shining by periodic washings. Like the Paris and Montreal subways, the cars glide silently on nitrogen-filled rubber tires. The total cost of the system will reach $300 million. But for many Mexican working men and their families, the subway is a museum, a people's park, a shopping center. This is our palace, said one peasant of the gleaming, art-filled stations. At Le Havre on the Atlantic Ocean, a state school, one of the best equipped in Europe, trains 400 students a year for jobs in the French merchant marine. Here, young men are taught the skills of deck officers and engineers. They learn not only how to run the machines, but also how to build and repair them. The French merchant marine ranks 10th in the world, with over 500 ships, a gross tonnage of 6 million. Its shipyards along both the Atlantic and the Mediterranean have orders until 1975. They rank 3rd in the world for orders of shipbuilding. These young engineers are learning new techniques on ground-based machines, the equivalent of the most up-to-date ship's engine room. Later, they will sail on either one of the school's 2 training vessels and still later spend a year at sea on a regular merchant ship, finishing another year again at school. This training allows them to sail on any type vessel up to and including giant ocean liners. For deck officers, the bridge at first may seem to be a complicated set of instruments, electronic equipment, and computers without a wheel in sight, but they will soon master all the mysteries of the bridge. The merchant marine handles more than half of France's trade with foreign countries, and it is undergoing profound changes. Heavy construction equipment from New York is unloaded in a few hours from this specially designed ship. Containerization, the new word in shipping, means greater efficiency, shorter turnaround time. Here, 200,000 tons are transshipped in 6 hours. Oil from the Middle East and North Africa totaled 2/3 of all French imports. This 90,000-ton tanker may seem like a giant, but it will soon be outclassed by 500,000-ton ships now being built, truly super tankers. There are 5 state schools for the merchant mariners in France. Besides the school at Le Havre, they are Saint-Malo, Paimpol, Nantes, Marseille. And there are 16 training schools for the fishing fleet. Some 14,000 fishing vessels supply France with 500,000 tons of fish every year. Of this, 9% is exported to common market countries and the rest of Europe and the world. Pride of the merchant marine and newest of the passenger ships is the SS France, built for the North Atlantic run between France and the United States. For people with leisure time, there is no more relaxing way of traveling than in the cruise-like atmosphere of a transatlantic liner. I must go down to the seas again, to the lonely sea and the tide. And all I ask is a tall ship and a star to steer her by. So once wrote an English poet laureate. And as long as the stars and the 7 seas exist, there will be men and women who will answer the sea's call and make it their life's work to sail on it. Fall and winter fashions from the Paris haute couture stress this season classic, simple clothes. Here's some highlights from top couturiers. La Roche, Balmain, Pat Boone, De Roche, Saint Laurent, Givenchy, Ricci, Lanvin, Gray, Dior, Martin. As usual, imagination, sumptuous materials, meticulous workmanship marked the clothes from Paris as an event of importance in the world of fashion.